Cześć, witam w kolejnym odcinku z gry Higurashi na Naku koro. I see it in movies quite often, but what is it exactly? Multiple personalities are tough to be escapism. Multiple personality disorder is a form of escape? Correct. The exact mechanism is not fully understood, but it's believed to be a type of defense for the brain to retain mental stability. Hypothetically, poor people imagining themselves as wealthy is a form of escapism, is it not? It is also the form of multiple personality disorder. I wouldn't go that far, but broadly speaking, one could infer that. It's something that occurs in us all. Does a split personality occur when one cannot tell which is reality and which is the escape? That's difficult to say. There are some who agree with that, and some who disagree. There is no consensus. Then, is the occurrence of multiple personalities still as unknown phenomenon? Something not fully comprehended in the physical field. Unfortunately, that is the correct state of things. We can only put our hope in future research. But it's sort of cool having a split personality. What kind of people get split personalities? Recent studies find that those who develop it, or rather these who are more susceptible to developing it, may be genetically predisposed or may have had abnormal mental development. Some say that childhood abuse increased the chances. Speaking of which, a person A have experienced abuse as a child, didn't he? How sad. Person A has 7 different personalities. Let's watch a video of him. Right after these commercials. The 7th month, a burger, a supermarket with food and alcohol. What's this, kaleczy? So many. There is no reason to get all the different kind. Is there? I flopped all the different colored cup noodle bowls in the cart. Cup noodles have gotten so elaborate recently, and there are a bunch of different types. I want to try each of them at least once. I knew it was pretty selfish of me, but I thought I'd at least give it a try. Kaleczy, buy them in the big case, it's cheaper. That faltered. Well, I had a feeling it'd end up like this. That knew there was no point in him butting in. Then I'd only get to eat one kind. I'd get bored with it. I was resisting as a formality. I had already given up inside and wasn't sure which case of noodles to get. If you can't pick, then mommy will pick for you. You didn't have to rush me. I quickly searched the cases of noodles for what I want. Pork, bone, ginger, large cup. Hey kaleczy, can you get more normal one? If I let mom pick, she'd err on the side of safety and get soy sauce or salt flavored. Pork bone is good. I didn't want a big bowl of tasteless stuff. I remembered insisting that the noodles I picked were the right kind. This frozen memory in the time, this encapsulated world, I didn't have the power to look around my surrounding. So I did what I could and reached out my hearing and vision, sharpening my senses to find the present I overlooked. No matter how much I searched through my field of vision, I couldn't see Rena. I rewound the situation, searching, but of course I couldn't find her. Then, was she spying me from my blind spot? I got through the sound and presence again, looking. I could sense the other customers. They were all mixed about, moving as they please. There were nobody looking over this way and no one trying to get behind me. Not here. Couldn't be here. Probably wasn't here. I could definitely notice if someone was right behind me, even when I wasn't on my guard. I smiled rarely and thought of using a vague word like probably right before contradicting it with definitely. Then I paused, my mental replay as a child ran down my spine. There was definitely a presence like a shadow behind me. That was a terror unlike the other. If a presence really had manifested behind me, I would definitely have turned around to check for it. But the world had moved on, and there was no way for me to turn around. While carrying that frightening shadow on my back, I was gleefully running around the store, searching for a case of noodles, running through the instant noodles section, but mouthing my mom. But there was that presence constantly on my back, sticking to me like a shadow. No way to see what it was. Realizing it now after the fact was horrifying and repulsive. In that moment of time, I was running around gleefully, carrying the cardboard box, tip-tap. But listening to that moment again, I could hear footsteps other than mine going pit-pat with every step. Tip-tap, tip-tap, tip-tap. Pit-pap, pit-pap, pit-pap. Tip-tap, tip-tap, pit-pap, pit-pap. Tip-tap, tip-tap, pit-tap, pit-tap. While I was running, the sound of these bare footsteps going pit-pat were right behind me. Me running around gleefully in that closed off moment in time. But I didn't hear it. No, I heard it. That's why I remember it. I didn't think I had heard anything. That's why I didn't turn around. That is why I didn't turn around. In that moment, the path of these footsteps were following me the entire time. I couldn't run faster and escape. I couldn't run any faster than I had run at that time. I couldn't turn around. I couldn't turn around before, not once. Then I returned to my parents and started talking. The shadow-like presence was right at my back. Since I didn't move, the shadow didn't move. That is why it made no sound. That was all. At that time, I hadn't taken a single step while talking with my parents. I was just standing there. This was undeniable. And yet, I heard it. A pit-pat. That shouldn't be. If I took 3 steps, it followed 3 steps. Wasn't that the rule? There was no sound other than that. At that time, the entire world had gone dark, a sudden darkness. It was the end of my reflective journey. I was tired. I wanted to end it. Someone turned on the light. Except my body couldn't move, as if it was sewn into that moment in time. Pit-pat. My past self's hair stood on end. That's impossible. Now, that's just breaking the rules. I haven't moved, so you shouldn't be moving either. I couldn't move, so you shouldn't be able to move either. Follow the rules. Pit-pat. Yet that sound echoed in the darkness once again. The hair on the back of my neck pricked up on end. It was so close that it was hard to tell whether it was touching the hair or not. Why couldn't I move? Like how the presence was moving behind me. I quickly realized I could move. It's just that I was scared and didn't want to. But now was the only time I could turn around. It was something unforgivable in this moment in time, but I needed to turn around immediately, as if my entire being was trying to force me to stop. It began administer to pain like a needle being stung into my every pore. I'll turn around. I'll turn around. I'm not scared at all. I'll turn around. I will turn around. I'm not scared at all. A scream I was unable to vocalize. Rah! I turned around. At first, I couldn't understand the meaning of it. What? What is this? The situation in front of my eyes. It was like a mouth beating the apple and slurping the juice, the way you would do with an apple. My mind was being eaten. It began to munch down, slurping the juices because it was like an apple. Meaning that was in the front of me was wow. I guess I'd be lying if I said I didn't get any sleep. I tried to stay awake all night, but there were definitely gaps in my memory. I guess I kept nodding off and jerking awake in a panic all night. I spent all night hacking the metal bat and sat on top of the futon I used to barricade my door. Waiting, watching just in case of someone tried to break in through my window. If I left this spot, someone would break through the door, sending the futon flying and attack me. But if I stopped watching the window, someone would break through the glass and attack me. I tried telling myself it was just being paranoid, but I couldn't sleep. The thought of being vulnerable scared the living daylights out of me. If sleep meant taking the risk, I didn't need it. It was so much better to just stay awake. At some point during the endless cycle of nodding off and jolting awake, light began to shine outside, but that was it. It wasn't so much the morning as it was just the sun simply having risen. I snuck a peek out through the curtains. Rena was gone. I couldn't see her anywhere, no matter how hard I looked. Finally, I could breathe a deep sigh of relief. The night was finally over. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't tired, but I didn't feel like sleeping at the moment. I still had time, but I needed to make my own breakfast, so I'd better get started soon. Skipping school was also an option. With my mom gone, it'd be easy to play hockey. Honestly, I debated it. The risk involved in leaving my house was incalculable, so staying holed up in here was probably the safest option. But staying here wouldn't solve anything. Oishi-san wouldn't help me without cold, hard evidence. And neither he nor my parents. So, unless I found some sort of proof, these relentless nights would never end. I stretched my body, tilted my head back, and closed my eyes, just like I did every morning. I regulated my breathing and regained my senses. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Let's go to school. Let's wait until they set their trap for me. But that didn't mean I was just going to twite my thumbs. I needed to avoid that trap and secure irrefutable evidence. Take note of the plate of any car that drives by. If I see someone suspicious, check their clothes and face. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was preparing myself to turn their attack against them and retaliate. The tension was similar to when two samurai were both aiming to slay each other with a single motion and they drew their katanas. I was not at a disadvantage. I would have a chance to retaliate. I finally felt a bit of courage growing in my chest. Alright, let's go to school. I tightened my grip on Satoshi's butt. He was the only partner I could count on. Satoshi, please lend me your strength and entrust your dying regrets to me, since you were probably murdered. I will make sure I dispel them. With renewed resolve, I checked the clock. It was still early. Of course, I was going to school by myself today. If I didn't want to run into Rena and Mion, I needed to leave now. The shattered fragments of cupboard were still strewn all over this entryway. Right, I meant to clean that up last night, but never got around to it with the phone call and everything. If my parents came back and saw this while I was at school, I would never hear the end of it. Still, it'd be wasting time if I clean it up right now. And considering what would happen if I ran into Rena and Mion, it wouldn't be too late to clean it up after I go back home. Making extra certain that the doors were locked, I left the house. My uniform was still covered in mud from yesterday, so I left it in the washer. Today I was going to school in tracksuit. By wearing a different outfit this morning, my mind was forced to accept that today was different from yesterday. I had a hunch. Today might be the day I get killed. Keep your guard, Keiichi Maebara. The only one who gets to decide if today is my last. It's me. I spent the morning practicing my swing like it was my natural routine. After a while, Rena arrived at school. Our eyes met, but we said nothing. Rena said nothing about last night, as if it never happened. But I could see that those events were real, by the ones carved into her fingers. I just heard her telling Satoko and the others that the bandages were from hurting herself in the kitchen. Tough. It wasn't like bothered me. The details that Oishi-san shared about Rena's incident before her transfer played vividly in my mind. Now that I knew about it, I couldn't even dream of Rena as cute, ideal girl. Keiichi-chan, I see you're still aiming for the nationals. It was Mion. I had already sensed her approach, so I wasn't that surprised. Oh, Mion, if you understand, then leave me alone. I'm busy practicing. I gave her a card reply without my usual jokes. Then I gave the bat an even larger swing, tactically keeping Mion from getting any closer. Hey, Keiichi-chan, take it easy. I think Mion got the message, but she still urged me to give it a rest. Homeroom's not that far off, is it? Just let me finish practicing. I swung the bat even harder and as a sign of my refusal. Keiichi-chan, when did you get into baseball? Just recently. Recently? You mean yesterday? Don't ask if you already know. Oh dear, that's a very unsportsmanlike reply. You're distracting me. Go away. I ignored Mion and kept swinging. Normally she'd get mad or bored and leave if someone gave her that cold shoulder like this. But Mion just stood there waiting patiently for me to stop swinging. I didn't sense any hostility, but we were at school, in plain view. I doubt she's suddenly attacked me here. Or was that too naive? Still, I was starting to get tired. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to take a break and hear her out. You need me for something, right? What is it? Sweat poured from me as I stopped swinging. I noticed my shoulders were heaving as I breathed. Breathed. I, I cursed my lack of experience. At this rate, I might not be able to move as needed when the time came. I should probably keep practicing my swings to build stamina in addition to excuse for carrying the bat around with me. Well, it's nothing important. If you are tired, I can ask you again later. Now is fine. I am only dealing with you right now because I judge the situation is safe. Talking to you alone and away from others, that's out of the question. Well, Mion was uncharacteristically trying to choose her words, but unlike Oishi-san, it didn't look like she was going to talk about something I'd rather not hear. Mion was puzzled, trying to find the right thing to say, but then she gave a hearty laugh to break herself out of that mire. This old man's just not good at this stuff. Having a poor vocabulary hurts. What's this all of a sudden? If you have something to say, just say it. Stop it. Stop that swinging. She cut straight to the point. Her request was so frank, I didn't understand it for a moment. I had already stopped swinging to listen to her, hadn't I? I just stopped, didn't I? That's not what I meant. I want today to be the last day you swing that bat. I'm sorry. It took me some time to understand what she was asking for. What's wrong with swinging a bat? Why? It's none of your business, is it? I'm not bothering anyone, am I? You are. Yon said in flat out. This didn't make any sense, and that was really irritating. When did I bother anybody? Mion was at loss of her words, but she finally made up her mind and spoke. She stuttered and she said it. Because Kaleczy, that's someone else's bat. You shouldn't borrow it without permission. It was left behind by a student who transferred, right? I'm just borrowing it until he comes back for it. Yeah, he transferred. Mion grew uncharacteristically flustered. That made it all too clear that his transfer was a lie. But strange, isn't it? For the older brother to transfer by himself, while his little sister stayed behind. Mion couldn't hide her reaction as my words shook her up. Kaleczy-chan, you knew? Satoshi Hyoju Satoko's older brother, right? The one demoned away last year. Unable to respond to that, Mion felt silent. Rena asked the same thing. Why did you start swinging that bat? She told me Satoshi did the same thing, practicing his swing right before he went missing. So, is this some kind of omen for Oyashiro-sama's curse? Shh! Mion panicked and looked around. Please, Kate-chan, don't mention Oyashiro-sama so recklessly. I didn't believe in him, but the others very much do. Rena especially. Dangerously so? Anyway, you are scaring everyone. If you're just fooling around, then stop it. You have to stop acting like Satoshi. I was the one who was scared. Who do I have to thank for taking up this bat in the first place? But it still unsettled me knowing that my actions were overlapping with Satoshi's. It would be one thing if someone suggested, but I thought I was making my own decisions. I will say this now. I don't know anything about Satoshi. After all, you didn't tell me anything about him. Well, we didn't mean to hide it. You were hiding the incidents that happened everywhere, weren't you? That's because we didn't want to. You didn't want to scare me. That's your reason for leaving me out? No, we didn't mean to. Mion, I asked you directly if something happened at the dam, didn't I? And you told me nothing happened. When someone was dismembered and murdered, you lied to me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to lie to you. Friends don't hide things from each other, right? Isn't that right? Then you aren't my friends. Kate-chan, Mion looked helpless and flustered. Was I imagining the tears in her eyes? I never could have imagined Mion acting like this. Oh, by the way, these get-well mochi you brought the other day, they were good. I thought I was going to bleed. Who did it? You or Rena? Me. She admitted it so easily. I couldn't help but she's surprised at how easy that was. You could have killed me. How could you do that? How could you do that to a friend? But it was just a little prank. Mion gave me a real smile mixed with confusion, causing even more anger to well up inside me. You think that was a prank? I grabbed Mion by the collar and lifted her up. That wasn't the same as putting Tabasco sauce in a piece of mochi. It was needle, a swing needle. If I had swallowed that and it lodged in my throat, what did she think would happen? Mion's face froze as her body rattled in fear. This wasn't the Mion Sonzaki I knew anymore. Anyways, you're not my friend. There is no reason for me to listen to someone who's not my friend. so just leave me alone for a while. Got it? Mion wasn't replying anymore. It wasn't that easy to erase me, you know. The cops have been on to you from the start, so don't think you can make me disappear like you did Satoshi. I said it clearly. This was my declaration of war. I think you guys are suspects in the previous incidents too. I also know you've spent a lot of time with the cops ever since the anti-dam movement. Don't think you can hide it from me. Got that? How did you know? Mion stood there was a dumbstruck look on her face. That was when I heard the principal ringing the bell for school. It was time for morning homeroom. Let's go. The class representative needs to be there, right? At that moment, for the first time, I realized Mion was sobbing as tears ran down her cheeks. You're so mean, Kate-chan. Me. I wanted to console her, but I shut my mouth. I had no need to feel guilty. I'm going. Don't be late for homeroom. I left Mion still shaking as I turned around to head for the entrance. I had no idea how troubling it was to make a girl cry. Behind my back I could hear her muttering. It was a faint mutter as she was speaking to herself. So that's how it is. She wasn't saying it to anyone. It was Mion talking to herself, but it was a sobbing voice that had a kind of giddy, cursing tone. I inadvertently stopped and turned back towards her. So it was that he leaked it all to Kei-chan. She balled up her face, and as her tears continued to rain down, she glared at the spot at the ground with a terrifying yet smiling face, cursing. A chill ran down my spine from that demonic expression. These transformations, Mion's transformation was different from Rena's. I should have killed him back then. He forgot the mercy I showed him because he was going to retire this year. Retiring this year? Was she talking about Oishi-san? Damn. No, I'm going to kill that damn old man. Oh. I felt like the air itself has begun distorting. With Mion at the center, the world had begun to twist and spiral, bending, whirling. This was the first time I experienced such a visage. Rise, attention. Mion made up an excuse for her red eyes by saying there was something wrong with her contacts. After that, neither Rena or Mion spoke to me for the rest of the day. Neither Satoko nor Rika-chan looked me in the eye. Strangely, I didn't feel hurt. Everything had just went back to the way it was. The month since I transferred in had been almost too much fun. That was all. School was supposed to be something like this to begin with. I should have disliked that feeling, but today I felt oddly refreshing. The bell rang, surrounding the end of the monotonous school day with head felt too tense yet so dull, since it would cause a lot of unpleasant memories if they asked me to join into the club activities. I promptly started preparing to go home without even looking at them. I stuffed the contents of my desk into bag, wrapped my hand around Satoshi's now familiar bed, and began heading towards the entrance. I was assailed by both the exhausting relief that nothing had happened today and the tiring possibility of the same thing repeating tomorrow. But deep down inside me, far beneath in the wretchedness of my heart, actually I knew this would be the last day of this cycle. I couldn't tell how the ending would be, whether it would be as end as I wished it to end, or if it would end as I hoped it wouldn't. Regardless, in my current state, there was something more important than how things would end. There was something I wanted to know. Why did I have to be killed? How did it come to this? Why? For what purpose? The sunlight was relentless. The sun, the heat, even the air, they wouldn't give me the answers. Or could it be that the cries of the Higurashi were desperately trying to tell me something? Somewhere mixed in with their shrieks. To Mitake-san and Satoshi were also probably trying to tell me something. I simply haven't been able to realize it yet. When I do realize it, I wonder if I will be amongst the Higurashi fruitlessly crying to the next victim. Glancing down at my feet, I saw a Higurashi on its back, spasming weakly. Blah blah blah. There was still much of the summer left, yet this one was already chirping its last song. I couldn't tell what it was saying, no matter how hard I listened. But I had to try. I had to try to listen to what it was desperately trying to tell me. At that moment, the shrills of the Higurashi ceased all at once, as if they had huddled together, fearing that the person who brought them to their dreadful fate had arrived. There was no mistaking it. A presence was approaching. The sound of footsteps was almost non-existent. If the Higurashi hadn't warned me by ending their chirping, I wouldn't have noticed. My exhaustion left me in a heartbeat. In this place was a rush of adrenaline that sharpened all of my senses. I was just barely able to hold back that creeping, suffocating feeling of horror. It wasn't something I could hold back for long, but in this moment when I needed to be razor sharp, I was able to retain my composure. I wasn't going to shout like I did yesterday. I hid myself calmly amongst the trees, waiting for my pressure shadow. Could I get them to pass by me? No. Since I was able to hear their footsteps, they were probably also able to hear mine. They might have already been able to tell that I'd hidden myself and was holding my breath. The person tailing me, was it Rena, just like yesterday? If it was Rena, I wouldn't hold back. I could just yell at her and make her go ahead like yesterday. If it wasn't Rena, it would depend on how they acted, I guess. The footsteps ambled closer. I swallowed, wiped my clammy hands on my pants and readjust the grip on the bed. But I could tell that the fear that I had beaten back once was now waiting for another opening to come at me. Who could it be? I picked up from behind the tree at the person following me. My imagination hadn't led me astray. It was Rena. There was a bit of relief as I realized it was someone I knew, but that feeling left me in an instant. This wasn't the same Rena that I knew. Her eyes were dark and lifeless, but her mouth appeared as it was curved into a crescent. Yes, it looked like she was grinning slightly, and in her right hand was an axe. I hid myself behind the tree once again and recalled the unbelievable sight I just saw. What was that just now? The embodiment of terror laid bare. Baseball. Practicing my swing, there were tons of excuses for me to be carrying a bat, but for that axe, there was no excuse for that. An axe, just like that. Keiichi-kun, are you playing hide and seek? I wonder. My heart was pounding hard enough that I had trouble breathing. What little composure I had been able to hold on to was now cursed. In this place, cold sweat gushed forth, covering my entire body, letting me know precisely what kind of emotion had taken hold. Not good. I wasn't able to hide myself completely. She already knew I was here. Were you trying to scare me? I wonder. I decided that it would be better to reveal myself now, since there was still space between us, than to allow Rena to come any closer. I adjusted my grip on the bed and re-added myself mentally and stepped out from behind the tree. I found you, Keiichi-kun. When I was pleased that she found me, elicting a mysterious giggle. Her mouth was smiling, but her eyes told me she was displeased by the fact that I had been hiding. These eyes, they were just so empty. My legs began to quiver. Not good. In the pit of my stomach, some sort of viscous, hot and cold substances began spreading around. If I allowed it, that substance would slip into my bloodstream and undoubtedly freeze all of the organs in my body. Not good, not good. I will be devoured by Rena at this rate. Strike back, don't lose. What is it? I blustered, hiding behind my bravado, but Rena didn't flinch one bit. Just the same as Keiichi-kun. I'm heading home. Then what about that axe? Then what about that bat you're holding? I'm practicing my swing. Then I'm treasure hunting. Rena gave a flippant explanation as to why she had such fearsome weapon. Treasure hunting? At the treasure mountain near the dam site, I found a new cutie thing, so I needed this to dig it out. How could I believe that? You wouldn't believe it, would you? Rena's laugh was obviously very strange. I'd seen Rena's restoration many times before, but the one today was completely different. Like her mischievous tone and the shrift glint in her eyes. It wasn't something that round about. I'm not sure what to say. It was just so obvious. Wait, Keiichi-kun. Rena didn't stop walking even she let out that entire laugh. Whenever Rena got too close to me, I would scurry away and turn back toward her. This cycle repeated over and over. No matter how you looked at it, I was being chased by Rena and was trying to escape. Don't follow me. I can't do that. My house is this way, after all. When I met Rena on this road yesterday, she covered and trembled as she followed my commands. But today was different. Rena didn't show a hint of trepidation. Actually, wasn't I the one who was covering? If the way home for Rena and me was the same, that's fine. I'd just change my route. That would work out, wouldn't it? I turned onto a side street I've never been down and knew little about. But Rena saw me to do that and followed me while laughing. Why? Aren't you going home? Then just go home down the street you normally do. Why would you follow me down this weird little side road? This thought screamed in my head, eventually spitting out of my mouth. Why, why are you following me? The tone of my voice was already tinged with terror. Because I want to talk to Keiichi-kun. Keiichi-kun wants to talk to Rena too. Doesn't he? Doesn't he? I don't want to talk about anything with you. That's a lie, isn't it? There is something you want to ask me about, isn't there? Not at all. I have nothing to talk to you about. That's a lie. That's a lie, isn't it? It's not a lie. Lies! Rena screams, hot starting someone, and nearby birds into flight. I cringe in fear. The only other thing I could do was increase my peace. Let's talk, Keiichi-kun. Talk. Why was I running down this unfamiliar and deserted street? Doesn't Keiichi-kun have something he's worried about? Nothing at all. I'm not worried about anything. Lies! Even through I was running, even through when I was walking, why wasn't I getting any further away? I know, I really do know. You're scared, aren't you, Keiichi-kun? I'm not scared. I'm not scared of anything. Lies! My breathing grew heavy and it felt like my legs were giving out from beneath me. Rena wasn't even breaking a sweat. I will listen. This time I'll listen. I have no idea what she was talking about or what exactly she wanted to do. This time I listen. It will be different from the time with Satoshi-kun. When she said Satoshi's name, I turned back for a moment. But even as I did that, Rena was still advancing. I couldn't afford to stop. Satoshi's-kun was worried too. It looked like he was having such a hard time, but I didn't listen. I was so sad. Where did this street connect to? All these twists and turns, ups and downs. It was hard to believe that this was even remotely in the direction towards my house. My sense of direction had long since gone and out the window. I really regretting it when Satoshi's-kun transferred out. I thought that it was, if I had listened, he may not have transferred out. I really regret that. The road led me deeper into the forest. Wasn't I getting farther away from the village the more I ran? I lost more and more of my composure the more I thought about it. But despite this realization, my inner self was still disturbing calm. So you see, I evolved. I evolved that if there was someone struggling like Satoshi-kun did, I'd save them. I don't want to see anyone transferred out again. Damn it. What does transfer even mean? I won't let you transfer me. I won't end the same as Satoshi. Come on, Keiichi-kun, talk to me. I'll be able to understand you, Keiichi-kun. I'm your ally. I started wheezing out of breath. My lungs were so hot that they felt like they were going to explode, and my heart was beating as hard as it possibly could. I should have practiced running instead of my swing. I couldn't even afford to scoff at that stupid thought. If Keiichi doesn't have anything to worry about, he will go back to normal, and everyone will be back to being friends, and we can enjoy club activities again. Next time we'll team up and beat Mi-chan. Yeah, how much fun that would be. Rena couldn't even imagine how much I had wished I could turn back the clock on these past few days. You could be nice to me again too. I want to go to searching for treasure again. This time I will prepare a nice lunch. Actually, we could just go right now. Let's go up and let's go up to the dam side together. I will show you the cutie thing I just found. I'm sure you will like it too. My footsteps made a pathetic flapping sound as my legs whooped the fluttered. Hot on my heels, Rena's steps were sharply breaking twigs underfoot. I had to accept it. I was on the run, being chased by Rena. If she caught me, it was all over. I realized it instinctively. I couldn't even begin to think of what the end would entail. Just that if I was cut, it was all over. That's all I knew. It didn't matter how it was going to end. I wouldn't let it end. Not without knowing anything. Not yet. That momentary lapse was all I took. All of the things that could have happened. My knees buckled underneath me, and I crumbled towards the ground. I tried to stand frantically, urging my legs to respond. I used my butt as a makeshift cane to prop myself up, but Rena was already standing right in front of me. Compared to me, out of breath and utterly exhausted, Rena was so cool and composed that she could have froze the air around her. She wasn't breathing hard at all. Rather, I couldn't even sense if her heart was beating. Are you afraid of something? I wonder. It's not like you to ramble, Keiichi-kun. Her expressions looked almost affectionate. These soulless eyes, that mask of affection, and she admonished me for trembling. Rena's hands deftly slipped over her head. The blur of arms as they moved made me feel as if I was starting to at the godliness of the thousand armed Buddha. Then, as both of her hands met above her head, the axe that she held came into focus. I stared up at it in the disbelief. It was all I could do. Tell me, what happened to Satoshi? Rena stayed like that, with that axe raised above her head, and solemnly opened her mouth. It was as if she was expressing farewell to a friend she was never to see again. That cruel scenario resided somewhere in her actions. I told you, Satoshi-kun transferred out. Enough of that transfer crap. It means demonetized. Wait, doesn't it? Doesn't it? You can tell me now, can't you? Who made Satoshi's disappear? Was it you, Mion, or someone in the village? Answer me. I became frantic, and the more I screamed, but Rena did nothing but maintain the smile frozen on her face. I have no idea what Keiichi-kun is talking about. Then I'll say it in a way so you do. Who is the perpetrator of this chain of mysterious deaths? You seem to be confused, Keiichi-kun. What? There is no human perpetrator. Everything is by Oyashiro-sama's will. Isn't Oyashiro-sama's course just superstition? You believe in that too? It's not about believing or not. Oyashiro-sama exists. Period. Rena's gaze grew even more guilty. The ferocity of her stare was so intense, not allowing me to question anything. There is just no way that something like Oyashiro-sama could exist. You don't believe in Oyashiro-sama? There is no way I could believe it. There is no way it could exist. It exists. Oyashiro-sama exists. Keiichi-kun should have felt it personally. I never felt something like that. Keiichi-kun, haven't you felt someone apologizing to you before? Constantly on top of that? All noises from the outside world disappeared. Only Rena's voice resounded loudly and terribly. You see, until you forgive them, they always be with you. At school, at home, at your bedside. I couldn't understand what Rena was saying. It came to me too. Oyashiro-sama did. That's why I transferred and came back to Hinamizawa. I don't understand. I don't understand. What does transfer even mean? What was Rena saying? Hasn't Oyashiro-sama came to you as well, Keiichi-kun? I'm probably the only one who you can confide in. I won't let you rat her out, okay? Ha 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 ha. Rena, demented laughter, clench around inside my head. Was Rena saying Oyashiro-sama came to her as well? That's right. Last night I had heard about that when I asked about Rena. Please keep this confidential. Also, part of this may be speculation. Not all of it may be true. Are you still interested? Oishi-san began speaking. Neither the victims nor the school filed a complaint, so there is no preliminary report. Basically, the police hadn't intervened in this matter, so all of these details are just what I heard from those involved. Meaning, it's not that credible. You said there were victims. Didn't Rena just break up all the windows? No, Rena Ryugu had attacked 3 boys using a metal bat. 2 of them made it out with only bruises, but the other had been injured so badly that one of his eyes was permanently damaged. Wouldn't that be considered assault? Assault? Shouldn't the police have arrested her? For whatever reason, the victim never pressed charges. There was no report to the police, so they were beaten with a bat and suffered significant injuries. Normally, there would be a criminal investigation, but why? Didn't they press charges? I tried asking the 3 male victims for their side of the story, but they all were reluctant. It's hard to say, but they were all afraid, even after she had to transfer schools. Oishi-san, could you summarize it starting from beginning? Rena hit people while she broke the windows, or was it she started breaking the windows after she got bored of hitting people? They sounded similar, but the meaning were drastically different. On an undisclosed date, Rena Ryugu was conversing with 3 male students, close friends of hers, near the pool's storage shed. Who were those 3? I can't reveal their names, but they were close to Rena Ryugu, and it seems they were a group of friends. She was the lone girl in their group. So it wasn't that strange that the 4 of them were together. So what happened? I don't know the reason why. She took the baseball team's bat that was in the pool's storage shed and beat the 3 of them down, one after the other. What? There were no witnesses. This was an account pieces together by the information given at the time of the incident. One day after school, Rena and 3 male students were at the pool storage shed talking together. They weren't seeking help, rather they usually met up there. It appears it became a heated discussion. At that time, Rena underwent change. The change was so abrupt that the three of them didn't comprehend what was happening. Then, taking the metal bat, she attacked her friends. One after the other, leaving her friends covered in blood with gashes on their head. She made her way towards the school building. Then she broke the glass windows one after the other. A few minutes later, a teacher appeared on scene and saluted her. What was this change Rena underwent? What matches up in the statements from the three was sudden change. The point that there was a transformation. I also could recall Rena's transformation. I'd seen that change many times before. It was so different from the usual Rena that I couldn't help but believe it was someone else who looked like Rena. That transformation they talking about, had it happened before? No, there was nothing like that. As far as I could find out, in her medical history and past, there was nothing like that. Does that happen often? Where people change suddenly like Rena did? Of course, it does. There are plenty of psychological phenomena that could cause something like that. Then you think there was a dormant element in Rena that caused that transformation? I cannot say that for certain, but according to the statement of her friends, it's hard to believe she had such a side to her. Kind, caring and adorable. Even before she transferred here, she was probably pretty popular in school like she was now. That girl transforming suddenly and assaulting them with a bat. Who could imagine such a thing? Nobody could have seen it coming. I myself sometimes believe that I was mistaken for thinking that that was Rena, even now. Then what happened after that? There was a hospital right across from the school, so the three of them were carried in and treated quickly. What about Rena? What about police? Why wasn't there a criminal investigation? You see, the police can't get involved unless they are called. Even though one was badly injured with permanent damage, why didn't they file charges? That's why caught my attention as well. Either some threat of or pressure was placed on them, or they had a reason they couldn't file charges even if they wanted to. we're talking about you after all. Of course you looked into it, didn't you? Well, yeah, but I told you at the beginning, at the beginning, didn't I? That the victims were all very reluctant to talk. They didn't want to touch on the matter, or rather, they don't want to be involved. Reluctant to talk, didn't want to touch it, didn't want to be involved. It resembled the villagers here and Oyashiro-sama's curse. Did the teacher at the school tell you anything? A school is hallowed ground. You could say they tend to keep scandals under wraps. I didn't have a search warrant, so I had to tread lightly, you see. Then there was no comment from the school. No, they denied the incident even happened. It's just 3 male students were carried in for blunt force trauma that day. That's all there was in the hospital records. The victims didn't speak. The school denied it happened. Then you don't know anything at all. Yeah, I know nothing other than the incident itself had taken place. The victims also wished this incident to be kept from the public. So if you and I both regret about it, my Barasan, then this incident will probably just fade away. For a brief period, we sat in silence. At first glance, it looked like a simple assault case, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. The depths were obscured by roiling waves, sinking quietly into the void, as if it never existed to begin with. After that, she was suspended by the school, and during that time she underwent psychiatric counseling. Did you hear anything from that doctor? Again, they were very professional in regards to their ethics, or at least very tight-lipped. Nothing, even after you showed them your badge. I was told to get a warrant. The badge itself has no legally binding authority after all. Then how did you know that Rena confessed that it was Oyashiro-sama who did it? There was a nurse I asked in that department. She agreed to help me just from showing her my badge. Then what did she say? Turns out that the nurse hadn't heard everything. Apparently, all that she remembered was what she overheard from inside the room. The nurse said that at the time Renarugu was very calm and mild-mannered. It was more like she was confessing her sins at church than counseling session. She spoke with her mother there for some it off, but partway through her mother was asked to leave, so it became a private counseling session between just the doctor and Rena for a while. The part with Oyashiro-sama, when did that pop up? Partway through, she screamed the name suddenly. That startled the nurse, and that's why she started to listening in. It was Oyashiro-sama. Rena suddenly shouted that. I had no idea what was said before that, so I had no idea what the meaning behind it could have been. The doctor calmly and collectedly asked Rena to have a seat. What it is, Oyashiro-sama, you speak of? Gently, ever so gently. The fundamentals of counseling were believing what you were told. Whoever abandons Hinamizawa will be hunted down by Oyashiro-sama, and they finally gotten to me. That's the town you lived in before you moved here? Isn't that right, Ryugo-san? I didn't want to move, but because of my mom and dad's circumstances, we had to. But Oyashiro-sama wouldn't allow it. Ryugo-san must have a lot of friends in Hinamizawa. Even now, you must be missing them dearly, don't you think? I want to go back to Hinamizawa. No, it's not that I want to go back. I have to go back. I should have gone back much sooner, but now it's too late. Oyashiro-sama has come. Oyashiro-sama is the name of the god in Hinamizawa. Isn't that right? Everyone knows it's Hinamizawa guardian deity, and if you ever try abandoning Hinamizawa by leaving, you'll incur his wrath. You had moved quite a while ago, didn't you? Then it was just now that this god has arrived. Is what you're saying? You might not you might not believe me, but Oyashiro-sama exists. That nurse was then asked by another nurse to do something and left the room. That was all she remembered. That this was Oyashiro-sama's doing, right? I do believe there is that kind of superstition in Hinamizawa, that if you leave the village, then you incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath. You should be familiar with this part, Maebara-san. I knew very well that what this scorned boy by the village incurred. To hinder the dam construction project, they cursed the construction foreman to his death. Then the following year, Satoko's parents, supporters and leading advocates for the dam were cursed to their death. But this was the first time I've heard of the curse incurred by leaving the village. This is my first time hearing that. I can understand outside tourists being cursed by the village, but why also villagers who live? Normally, people who live village aren't supposed to be cursed, right? I know it's a bit strange to say, but I could see it as a rule that the people who came in are the ones who could be cursed. Far from Jupiter, far from this thunder. Curses weren't something to chase after people that live, were they? Oishi-san pondered for a bit over the other end of the receiver, then began speaking again. Well, I told you of long ago when Hinamizawa was called Onigafuchi, didn't I? I recalled hearing that. Long ago, Hinamizawa was feared and respected as the village of Ogs. The villagers at the foot of the mountains worship the Ogs. So Onigafuchi was hollowed ground that you could never enter. It came to be said that if you entered carelessly, you were cursed by Oyashiro-sama. These who set foot in Onigafuchi, in other words, Hinamizawa, would be cursed. I could understand that. I know that, but for living to also be not good, that's also the Ogs, you see, they were being strictly watched by Oyashiro-sama, so they would not enter into our world. In other words, Oyashiro-sama probably restricted interaction between Onigafuchi and the rest of the world. I see. I finally understood what sort of thing Oyashiro-sama was. So basically, Oyashiro-sama is more like a warden than protectorate deity, I guess. Trying to keep this place isolated from the rest of the world. I guess that's how it would seem. I'm sorry, I didn't know very much myself. This is mostly what was passed on to me from my grandmother. I could understand it a bit better if I was like that. These who came to Hinamizawa would be cursed, and these who tried to leave would also be cursed. So, because Rena originally lived in Hinamizawa and moved away, she fulfilled the requirements for being cursed. So that means because Rena moved away against its wishes, she was cursed by Oyashiro-sama. Is that what it adds up to? In short, that seems to be what it points to, I guess. As a matter of fact, soon afterwards, they did move back to Hinamizawa after all. These who abandoned Hinamizawa and left were cursed. But then, why only Rena? Shouldn't Rena's parents also have been guilty of the same transgression by moving away and being cursed? And also, in this day and age in Japan, shouldn't there be a lot of people coming and going? In every single one of them was cursed, then it'd be insane. But in reality, it wasn't that big of deal at all. At most, there would be one person dying and one disappearing on the day of the Wataganashi. I don't like saying at most through. Well, anyways, there's a lot I still don't know. Even if it was Oyashiro-sama's curse, it doesn't add up to why her classmates were victims who were beaten with a metal bat I wouldn't press charges. You don't think the victims were covering because they believe that terrible curse had befallen them, do you? Of course, I didn't want to believe it, but more importantly, I had just realized something else. There was another bizarre connection that Rena made between Oishiro-sama's curse and metal bats. Satoshi fell victim to Oishiro-sama's curse and went missing. I had recently learned that Satoshi had also become infatuated with the metal bat right before he disappeared, just like me. Then Rena as well. She was affected by Oishiro-sama's curse. She confessed that much to the doctor. The weapon which she had used at that time of that horrendous act was again a metal bat. And finally me, I encountered various things that were inexplicable, and now I was holding onto a metal bat. I was shocked when I learned that Satoshi did the same thing. It couldn't be. Had the same thing happened to Rena, but there was one critical difference between her and Satoshi's case. That being, Satoshi went missing after falling victim to the curse, but Rena was still here. Both of them had fallen victims to Oishiro-sama's curse, yet they were met with different endings. And finally me. I couldn't call it a coincidence anymore. Rena, Satoshi, and finally me. Could it be that I really was under Oyashiro-sama's curse right now? No. More importantly than that, what should I do now? Satoshi had been demoned away, vanishing without a trace. Rena was fine. Fine? Rena had undergone a change. I could only believe that there was something that wasn't Rena residing within her. And her, right now, it was standing before me. Rena, please tell me, what will happen to me? Rena stood impossibly not answering. Satoshi disappeared, but Rena didn't disappear. So what will happen to me? I had never heard such an unpleasant laugh before. I had become akin to the sound of her breathing. It was no longer a voice or an expression of feeling. Don't worry, I save you. Rena took one step forward, still holding the axe high above her head. Now then, one step closer. Rena's face spread out to fill my vision. Speak. One step closer. Rena's nose was close enough to touch mine, and was still pushing closer. There's something you want to say, isn't there? I will listen. I will save you. Okay? Speak. Okay? Speak. Okay? I slammed down, landing squarely on my butt. It wasn't for some pathetic reason. It was all I could do to get as far away from Rena. I had the gut feeling that I couldn't let her laughter end, because when that laugh ended, the moment I picked up on the feeling, my body moved by instinct. I sprang on my feet so fast even I couldn't believe it, and pushed Rena away with both my hands. Rena was as light as feather, thrown about by my unbalanced weight of the axe. She was sent backwards as if she had been carried off by the wind. After confirming that out of the corner of my eye, I dashed off at full speed. I was the perfect picture of fleeing like a greased pig. Get away from Rena. Run away. Survive. I couldn't think of anything other than this. While I was running, I remembered I'd been holding onto a bat the entire time. Such a worthless weapon. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about this weapon at such an important time. I sped even further down the winding path. I didn't even feel myself gasping for breath or my legs getting heavy. My body understood it as well. If I didn't run away from here, I wouldn't leave. I could hear the laughter of that simulacrum of Rena coming from behind me. It rang through the trees and in my head, and slowly chased away at my sanity. The grove of trees thinned out, my field of vision suddenly expanding. Where was this? For a moment I was bewildered by scenery I felt I knew, but I couldn't quite remember. I quickly realized it was the downside. The fact that I dashed madly and ended up in a place like this gave me a bad feeling, like I was following someone's scripted plot. I had a good view of my surroundings, but I didn't see a single soul here. This was a terrible spot for someone on the run, but there was no better place for an attacker. My heart was already on the verge of bursting. The muscles in my legs were screaming, but I didn't care. If I stopped here, then they might not even be able to scream for much longer. Even still, I glanced back, looking for an excuse to rest. Rena wasn't there. Instead, I saw two villagers walking around. I breathed a sigh of relief that it wasn't Rena, but a third party. Except the voice inside me rang the alarm once again. Villagers walking around weren't suspicious in and of themselves, but it bothered me. They both wore rough-looking clothes. Empty-handed, they definitely gave the impression that they were just out for a walk. But at this time of day, two adults wandering around without a purpose, it was enough to raise questions. But more than anything else, these eyes, they weren't checking while walking. They were both silent, heading forward, looking in my direction. Was I at the end of my rope and had finally started imagining things? I should run away. That was probably the best choice. If they weren't involved, I'd lose them easily by running. If they were part of the group after me, then they could came running after me. Either way, unless I hurried up, Rena would catch up with me. That side, I was going to run. Deciding that the moment I began to turn tail, both of them rushed towards me as if they knew exactly what I was thinking. Somewhere inside me, I had jumped onto the conclusion that Rena was the only thing I needed to be afraid of. I made the assumption that I didn't need fear anything else. But right now, I realized just how bluntly wrong I was. Suddenly, the story Oishi-san told me about the demons leaving the village to hunt prey floated through the back of my mind. Could tell they were both coming after me without even turning around because of their frenetic footsteps. It was frightening being unable to shake Rena off as she slowly closed in on me, but this doesn't even compare. Being cursed with such violent ferocity, this straightforward horror was unparalleled. One of the Percher's arms grazed my shoulder. Now it wasn't just their franchise footsteps, but also the distinct sound of their breathing that I could hear. No, I could practically feel them breathing on me. They were already right behind me. Calm down, Keiichi Maebara. Still running at full tilt, I felt the surrounding area go still. No, I feel like the time itself had stopped. I turned my head back slightly in that frozen world, realizing how close my pressures had gotten to me. I couldn't win against the legs of the adult. In less than the time it would take to blink twice, when this frozen time began moving again, they'd be right on top of me. And then, don't think about that, Keiichi. First, realize that you won't be able to shake them off like this. If the fact that they can't get away was given, then you need to make the decision. go with the right leg or go with the left leg. You just need to decide which one. Let's go with the left. The moment I decide that the temporal singularity burst into pieces. Right, left. I swung the bat in the wide arc with my right arm, using that inertia stopped and suddenly spun. What? The two of them were clearly startled. Momentarily losing sight of me, both of their outstretched arms ready to grab me, instead grasped up at empty space. The man on the right, I applaud him being able to figure it out, spun around to the spot I shouldn't have been and faced me in astonishment. But it was too late. I didn't even need to swing my bat. All I needed to do was extend my arms as I turned around. It was by no means a heavy blow, but it seems like it had enough power behind it to knock him off his feet. But just knocking him down wasn't enough to scare him away. He got back up in no time. Both of them took a fighting stance and were ready to face me. This made me certain that they weren't just two people out of walk. They were clearly after me. It felt much easier than dealing with Rena. Just by not recognizing their faces, by not knowing them, it made things easier. I smiled wearily on the inside. What do you want with me? Next one is going to be right in your face. It's fine if I just bluff. By barking out of them, I was able to fire myself up. They didn't respond. They spread out to either side of me with unbelievably calm expression on their faces. One of them would grab onto my bed and the other would hold me down. That was their plan. Taking on both of them at once would be impossible. Hot sweat poured from every pore in my body. Then I just have to settle it with the first move. I'd step in and strike the first one down, narrowing my target down. The man on the right, who had already been knocked down before, I stepped in and swung with all my might. There was no way for an armed person to guard against it. It would cost immense damage. If they blocked it with their arm, their bone would snap into twig. If they turned their back to it, then it was possible that the blow would travel all the way to the vital organs. It looked like he was aware of this. He pushed further through the kill zone between us and delivered it at first right into my gut. Not good. With this distance, in this position, and in this state, there was no way for me to dodge it. The world flipped upside down. I understood that I was being tossed around like a ragdoll. I landed on this soft earth without a sound, feeling the grainy soil pressed against my face. I didn't hurt at all, but the moment I thought that, it suddenly felt pain coming from the abrasions of my skin, as well as the content of my stomach being forced upwards, flooding my mouth with bitter sensation. I knew very well that I didn't have the time to relish this experience. I stood up as quickly as I could, but at that moment the other man was already barreling towards me. Being able to comprehend calmly that I simply couldn't dodge, it made it all the more upsetting. After plowing into my stomach full force once again, my assailant twisted around behind me and looked his thick arm around my neck. My throat, my throat felt like it was being crushed by his immense strength. I couldn't even contemplate that I was being strangled, or that I was about to go un, 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 conscious. My vision simply darkened, and a silent whining noise began playing deep inside my mind. It took everything I had to keep myself from blacking out. While this was happening, the other man was more than likely standing in front of me. I wasn't able to open my eyes, but I could feel that he was there. There was nothing I could do now. Unable to shake his arm off me, I couldn't run. I couldn't fight back. Dire straits. I couldn't even come up with a phrase that adequately described my situation. Familiar ceiling, the smell of the bed and pillows. I knew them well. Was this my room? Normally there wouldn't be anyone in my room besides me, but their presence made me spring wide awake. When I did that, pain shot through my entire body. Feeling alright? I think you'd better just lie down for a bit. Why was Rena in my room? Blood began to surge through my muscles and my capillaries. But Rena's smile belonged to the Rena I knew well. I knew I shouldn't let myself feel this way, but I relaxed thinking that this version of Rena was safe. Why am I? Don't you remember? After losing consciousness, nothing at all. My body had become more lethargic than I could even have imagined. I guess that would be expected outcome after exerting everything I had back there. 2 godziny. I tried to at last clear my head, but I just couldn't shake the sluggish feeling out of my mind. I called the doctor. He should be soon here. I think you better just lie down until then. I wasn't injured seriously enough to merit calling a doctor, but knowing that someone impartial was coming was slightly reassuring. Why am I here? I'm sure I was at the downside. That's what I want to know. What happened? When I got there, Kaleczy was already passed out. That's why I'm the one who wants to know. I was attacked by 2 weirdos. As I talked about it, I finally remembered what happened right before I passed out. Recalling that memory and the terror that went along it, it caused the fogginess around my head to clear it up. Let's forget about these two for now. I didn't expect Rena to be nursing me. I thought Rena was trying to kill me. She would have had the perfect chance while I was unconscious. Not only did she not kill me, but she had nursed me back to health. Amazing, you could drag me all the way back here. Wasn't I heavy? Looking at Rena's delicate frame, it was hard to believe that she had not only gotten me back home, but even dragged me all the way up to the second floor. Did she have some help? Don't you remember, Kaleczy-kun? Rena appeared a bit surprised, but still kept her smile. I only propped you on my shoulder. You said you could walk on your own and that you were fine. You don't remember? I didn't remember. My memory was fast after the point where I lost consciousness. What about these two? Huh? When did you got there, Rena? The ones with me, or rather, these 2 guys? There wasn't anyone. She said it bluntly. The way she stated it felt slightly unpleasant. I was just too timed at the time. It might have been able to force someone answers out of Rena, but if I did that, then this kind of Rena might transform into the scary Rena who I didn't know. Feeling that, I didn't press any further. Thinking about it, it was the obvious choice. If both of these men were there, I don't think Rena would even have stood a chance. I couldn't find a way to explain it unless I assumed she brought me here after these 2 were already gone. Rena was still smiling. Her eyes sparkled warmly. Yet I feel like I was hallucinating when I saw something akin to a shadow slowly creeping across her face. That small omen sent shivers down to my spine, while Rena was still Rena. I needed to make a contact. I needed to contact Yoichi-san. Rena stopped me when I tried to get out of bed. She said it would be aggravate my wounds so I wouldn't sleep. I'd like to go to the bathroom. Sorry. Rena couldn't say anything else. While Rena stayed in my room, I quickly went downstairs to get the phone receiver in the living room. When I approached the front door, the doorbell rang ding dong. It must have been the doctor Rena had called. It was strange for a patient to welcome in the doctor who was making a house call, but it would be incredibly reassuming to have him here for the considerable time it would take Oishi-san to get here. I carelessly opened the door with the simple assumption, and regretted it almost instantly. Mion? Oh, you look just fine. Just heard you collapse, so I came to check up on you. How did you know I collapsed? I heard from Rena over the phone. Do I need any reason other than that? I understood why she would call a doctor. But why Mion too? Rena was descending the stairs behind me. Rena, doesn't Kei-chan look pretty alright? Shh, you made me worry for nothing. That's true. Maybe I worried for nothing as well. They both began laughing. It appeared to be cheerful laughter, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was a darkness looming over them. Wow, what's up with this show rack? How did it get like this? The show rack that I smashed into pieces had been like this since yesterday. I feel, you see, the bat I was holding at the same time slammed onto it. This is what happens when you swing around is something you're not used to handling. I keep the fact that it was none of her business to myself. But leaving it like this will really startle your parents when they get home. I will fix it for you later. Now, come on, Kei-chan. The terminally ill need the rest. Come, back in bed. Both of them urged me the upstairs. I had no chance to call Oishi-san. I was pushed into my bed. As it was the first time Mion had been in my room, she began searching around it intently. She fiddled around my room and was scolded by Rena. You can imagine how it went. It was uncomfortable having my room poked around by, but the conversation was so benign that it was heartwarming. During that innocent conversation, Mion said something as thought tough. It was perfectly original. Rena, did you call the manager? Yep, right after I called Michan. He said he'd be right over. Manager? That out-of-place word gave me a bad feeling. Rena called a doctor, then called me on, and after that she called a manager. Who was this manager? Since Rena and Mion's conversation was so peaceful, it only felt slightly odd. What are you two talking about? Who is this manager? Didn't know? Didn't you know, Kei-chan? We mean the manager who, when you were. We mean the manager when we said manager, like the director of a movie, or like a foreman of a construction site. Ha 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 ha. I dug through all my memories for a manager who might have business with me. Only one thing came to mind. What Rena had just said. The construction site foreman. The very first victim of the first incident. The dismemberment at the then construction site. The foreman. But that was strange. He was supposed to be dead. There was no way they could call him. I don't understand what you guys are talking about. What does that manager have to do with me? You said he was coming. Did you mean to my house? I asked one of his question after another. But all the two of them did was smile coolly at each other. There was a huge difference between how the two of them appeared and how my suspicions were playing out. Slowly, I felt discomfort and panic welling up inside me. I couldn't understand what Rena and Mion were talking about. Kei-chan, you've gotten into baseball lately, haven't you? Pretty sure the manager will be happy to hear that. So who is this manager? The manager is the manager. So who is this manager? Ren and Mion looked at each other and laughed haughtily. The disturbing cackle unpleasantly resounded around me. That laugh, long enough to be unsettling, ended abruptly. Oh yeah, we should finish up before the manager comes. You remember, don't you, Kei-chan? Her face was laughing, but Mion's eyes told a different story. Remember what? Keiichi-kun, had he forgotten, I wonder, about the penalty? About the penalty. Did you really forget? The homework with the mochi? The homework where you were supposed to guess which one Rena made. You forgot about the homework, didn't you? I certainly did have that homework, but I had thrown away the rest of the mochi after I found the sewing needle, so I wasn't able to answer which one Rena made. The penalty for that? Why now? No doubt, my question was written all over my face. The answer to my question was that dry laughter. I could no longer make heads or tails of anything. I began to think that this entire day was somehow insane, strange, incomprehensible. Being chased by Rena, attacked by strange men, the the penalty Mion and Rena were talking about. What were these two laughing at? I don't take that long for me to realize I had been dragged into an abnormal situation. Who were these two? Who were these two people? Who were these doppelgangers of Rena and Mion? Rena has gotten behind me at some point. Why was she pinning my arms behind my back? What are you doing? Don't move. This is your penalty. Ha 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 ha. My body was already very sluggish, and Rena pinning my arms made it that much harder to move. I seriously tried to struggle, but she wouldn't even budge. My panic began to well up, and I realized this was well beyond the realm of jokes and pleasantries. This freakingly monstrous strength. It would have been impossible for the Rena that I knew. Then these thin, frayed arms grasping me firmly. These arms were they. Kei-chan, no struggling. Club rules. There are no exceptions. You can't fight against the penalty. Mion, not that thing that looked like Mion, spoke to me like how Mion would speak to me. But it was certain that this was not Mion. Someone who wasn't Mion. Someone who was just pretending to be Mion. Need to finish this up before the manager comes. Mion fishes into her pocket and pulled out something bizarre. I could tell what it was just by looking, but for such a thing to be in her pocket, my mind wouldn't accept it. What is that? It was a small syringe. It was a small clear syringe, like what a doctor would use when you went to him when you were sick. Rena held me even tighter, and I could hear that clattering laughter that no longer sounded like laughter blowing into my ear. That eerie laughter. It wasn't something that the Rena I knew could ever produce from her own throat. This thing that was pretending to be Rena, was this their real laugh? Unable to defend myself, the sergeant Mion was holding drew closer, and that needle tip was waved in front of my face countless times. Don't worry, it won't hurt, What are you planning on doing What kind of sick joke is this? What are you saying, Kei-chan? You know exactly what's going on, don't you? About what? I don't understand any of this at all. I know you know. No use playing the fool this late in the game. Stop talking nonsense to try and confuse me. You're going to have done to you what happened to Mitake-san. What? The same as Mitake-san? I didn't really understand what she meant. What did what did that have to do with this Syrian? With you're playing dumb, Keiichi-kun. You should have realized it by now. Rena whispered into my ear, laughing as if to admonish me. But even the way she spoke was repulsive beyond compare. Playing dumb? Me? About what? What do you mean? The same as Mitake-san. Everyone thought at first that it was a hit and run, except when the officer got closer and checked if he's still alive. He soon noticed it wasn't a normal situation. His throat was scratched out from a knife or something. No, nails. Nails? Nails as in fingernails. With this gouge throat? That's right. Mitake-san has claved out his own throat with his own nails and died. There's no way someone could die like that. So then, for that to happen, we thought drugs were to blame, but nothing of that nature was detected. That's right. The police didn't find any drugs in Mitake-san's system. The police told me they didn't find any drugs in Mitake-san's body. The two of them laughed together with that sickening laughter. Of course they laugh. To assume that such a medicine didn't exist just because the police didn't know about it. It was completely foolish. Co się stało? Meaning the drug that caused the Mitake-san to die is in such a bizarre manner did exist. If Mion injected this into me, then that would probably be all the proof I needed. That would basically mean I'd end up the same as Mitake-san, become hysterical, scratching out my throat in my last moments, then die. For such an outrageous drug to exist, for Mion to be holding it, and that I was about to be injected with it. At that moment, I did not feel there was any need whatever to question it. What kind of idiot, when she's trying to dodge a ball flying straight for its face, has time to think of a reason as to why it's flying to him? Just give up. Alright then. Mion's actions locked any gravitas, and that's made it even more terrifying. There was none of the ceremony like when someone is sentenced to death. There was no hesitation at all, as if she were brushing her teeth. Mion reacted out with one hand and grabbed onto my chest. It felt like electricity had run through the back of my head and the entire world has gone dark. Did it stand up too fast? Or did someone hit me really hard in the back of the head? Having lost all my sense of balance, I was assaulted by a wave of dizziness. The Higurashi when they cry.